Hi again, it's Christina, the celiac disease dietitian. Now, one of the most common questions you'll see posted in Facebook groups for people on a gluten-free diet is this gluten-free? And then they'll post a picture of the ingredients of a product. Now, crowdsourcing like this can be helpful when you come across something tricky, but you really can't rely on this long term, especially if you've been diagnosed with celiac disease. You don't want to be trusting someone else with that. You need to get proficient at reading labels, and you need to get proficient quick. Well, today I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of my label reading guide, which I'll link below and that you can download for free. It teaches you how to read labels so you don't have to rely on random people on the internet to tell you whether something is gluten-free anymore. Before we get started, the guide and the steps I talk about here are just for Aussies and Kiwis, okay? Because in Australia and New Zealand, our labelling laws are the same, but they're different to the rest of the world, okay? So if you're an Aussie or a Kiwi, let's get started. Okay, so step one is really obvious. If it's marked gluten-free anywhere on the product, you're good to go. You don't need to then turn it around and check the ingredients. Step two is where you're going to have to start becoming familiar with some ingredient names. So wheat, rye, barley and oats all fall into the category of declarable allergens, meaning if they're in a food in any way, shape or form, they must be declared on the label somewhere, either as that grain or as gluten. So that means if you can't see wheat, rye, barley, oats or gluten mentioned anywhere in the ingredients, any allergen summary statement or any warning statement, you're also good to go. Now, one important thing to note here is that when you're looking for wheat, you also need to keep in mind that wheat can go by a few different names. The most common of these is spelt and triticale, so you'll also need to remember these at the very least. But the instances of wheat not being clearly identified as wheat is quickly phasing out because of the new plain English allergen labelling laws that are coming in. But you still need to be mindful of it for a few years yet because that hasn't come into full effect. Now here is where it gets a little bit more nuanced. So if you get to step two and you find that the only thing mentioned is wheat or sometimes gluten, the product might actually still be gluten-free, and that's where step three comes in. Because there are three very common ingredients you need to be aware of that are gluten-free even though they are derived from wheat. And those are wheat glucose syrup, caramel colour 150 from wheat, and dextrose from wheat. So these three ingredients show up a lot, and sometimes the product will even say contains gluten, even though the only supposed gluten source is the wheat glucose syrup. Okay, so I know it's confusing, but it's just due to a general lack of understanding in the industry about gluten. Now, there are a few other gluten-free wheat-derived ingredients, but they're really very uncommon. In fact, I've never come across them personally, so there's really only the three you need to learn off by heart. So it's really not that hard to memorize these ingredients, right? You know you have to avoid gluten, so that shouldn't be hard to remember. Then you have the four gluten-containing grains, wheat, rye, barley, oats, and it's also good to remember spelt and triticale. And the only other three ingredients you need to remember are glucose, dextrose, and caramel colour. And after you follow my simple flowchart a few times, you will easily learn these ingredients off by heart. And that's when your shopping is going to become a lot quicker because you'll just be able to scan labels really quickly without having to look up every single ingredient. So the sooner you get started practicing, the better. So go to the link in the description and download my guide right now. Also, if you'd like to go into even further detail on this, including what those pesky may contain statements really mean, what to do about foods that don't have a label or a list of ingredients, and how this all works for medications, supplements, and alcohol, which doesn't need a label, you'll have the opportunity to enroll in my full label reading class, which you can do at any time, night or day, when you sign up for my free guide. So just keep an eye out for that. As always, if you have anything you'd like me to cover in these videos, then please send me a message on social media. I'd really love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the like button if you found this video helpful, and also subscribe. That would really help me to reach as many people as possible. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.